Emma's hands were shaking as she poured coffee for table 6. But it wasn't the morning rush that rattled her. It was the sight of 4 men in black suits entering Rosie's diner, like a wall of stone, flanking a man whose cold eyes were scanning the room until they landed on the small blonde girl sitting alone in the corner booth. The same girl Emma had been quietly protecting for 3 weeks, and suddenly everything she thought she knew about little Lily was about to shatter. The diner went silent, the usual clatter of plates and morning chatter fading into a tense hush as the tall man in the navy suit moved through the space with the kind of presence that made people step back instinctively, his jaw tight, his expression unreadable, while the bodyguards positioned themselves near the door and windows like they were securing a perimeter. And Emma felt her heart hammering because Lily, sweet, quiet, lonely Lily who came here every morning before school with exact change for pancakes and orange juice, had suddenly gone pale, her small fingers gripping the edge of the table, her eyes wide with something that looked like fear mixed with desperate hope. Emma had first noticed Lily 3 weeks ago, on a rainy Tuesday morning, a tiny figure in a white dress with faded flower patterns, soaked to the bone, standing outside the diner with a pink backpack, too big for her small frame. And when Emma had opened the door and asked if she was okay, Lily had simply whispered, "Can I have pancakes, please?" with a voice so small and broken it made Emma's chest ache, and without thinking, Emma had ushered her inside, wrapped her in a spare apron to warm her up, and served her a stack of buttermilk pancakes that the little girl ate slowly, methodically, like she was trying to make each bite last forever. Over the following days, Lily became a fixture at the corner booth, always arriving at 7:15 in the morning, always alone, always with exact change counted out in coins and crumpled dollar bills, always ordering the same thing, and always sitting with a sadness in her blue eyes that no 8-year-old should carry. And Emma, who was barely making rent on her own tiny apartment, who worked double shifts just to afford groceries, who had her own scars from a childhood spent in foster, could recognize that loneliness, that hunger for connection, and she began to do small things: an extra pancake on the plate, a warm smile, a gentle question about school or her day. Lily rarely spoke much, offering only quiet nods or one-word answers, but slowly, over days that turned into weeks, she began to open up. In fragments she mentioned she lived in a big house, that her mom wasn't around anymore, that her dad was always busy, that the housekeeper made her lunch but never asked how she was, that she felt invisible most of the time. And Emma's heart broke a little more with each revelation, because she saw herself in this child, saw the same aching need to matter to someone, to be seen, to be valued. Emma started arriving early to make sure Lily's booth was clean and ready, started keeping a coloring book and crayons under the counter for her, started sitting with her for a few minutes when the morning rush slowed, asking about her drawings, listening to her soft voice describe the stories behind each colorful picture: a house with a garden, a woman with yellow hair who Lily said was her mom before she went to heaven, a girl holding hands with someone who looked like Emma. And when Emma saw that last drawing, she had to excuse herself to the back room to wipe away tears, because this child had drawn her, had made her part of her world, had trusted her with something precious. The other regulars at the diner noticed too. Old Joe, who always sat at the counter, started leaving an extra $1 on the table for the kids' juice, and Martha, the cook, began making the pancakes shaped like hearts or stars just to see. Lily's rare, fleeting smile, and even Tony, the grumpy manager, softened enough to stop asking questions about why Emma was wasting time with the girl, because everyone could see that something meaningful was happening, that this quiet, fragile connection was healing something in both of them. Then came the morning that changed everything, the morning when Emma saw the black luxury SUV pull up outside, saw the 4 bodyguards emerge first, scanning the street with professional intensity, saw the tall man in the navy suit step out last, his face carved from stone, his presence commanding. and she watched as he stood there for a moment, staring at the diner like he was steeling himself for battle. And then he walked in with his security detail flanking him, and the entire place froze. Emma's first instinct was to step between him and Lily, her body moving on protective autopilot, but before she could reach the booth, the man's eyes locked onto his daughter, and Emma saw something crack in that cold exterior, a flash of pain, of regret, of something desperate, and Rand's voice, when he finally spoke, was rough with emotion. "Lily, I've been looking everywhere for you." Lily didn't move, didn't run to him, just sat there with her hands in her lap, her voice barely a whisper. "You didn't notice I was gone, Daddy, you never notice." The words hit him like a physical blow, and Emma saw this powerful man, this person who clearly commanded wealth and authority, actually stagger back a step, his face crumbling, and one of the bodyguards shifted uncomfortably, while the others kept their eyes trained on the exits, professional and detached from the emotional scene unfolding before them. Marcus, that's what Lily had called him once. Saying Daddy's name is Marcus, like even that felt distant, slowly approached the booth, and Emma noticed his hands were shaking, actually trembling, as he struggled to find words. "Lily, sweetheart, the school called, said you haven't been arriving until after 8:30, 4 weeks, and Mrs. Chen said you leave the house at 7, and I didn't know where you were going, if you were safe, if..." His voice broke completely, and he had to stop, had to press his fingers against his eyes, and Emma realized this wasn't a confrontation, this was a father discovering how badly he'd failed his child. How far the distance between them had grown. Emma found her voice, stepping forward carefully. "She's been safe. Sir, she comes here every morning, has breakfast, and I make sure she gets to school on time." Marcus's eyes snapped to her, really seeing her for the first time, taking in the diner uniform, the protective stance, the way Lily's gaze flickered toward Emma like she was a lifeline, and understanding dawned in his expression. "You've been taking care of my daughter." It wasn't a question, it was a statement, heavy with shame and gratitude, and something that looked like anguish. And Emma nodded, her voice gentle but firm. "Someone needed to. She's a wonderful kid, and she deserves to feel like she matters." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft sound of Lily starting to cry, tears streaming down her small face as she whispered, "I just wanted pancakes like Mommy used to make, and I wanted someone to talk to me, to see me, because at home everyone is busy and quiet and sad, and I'm sad too, Daddy, I'm sad too, but nobody asks, nobody cares." Marcus dropped to his knees beside the booth, this powerful man in his expensive suit kneeling on the worn diner floor, and he reached out with shaking hands to cup his daughter's face. "I care, baby, I care so much. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought, if I worked harder, made more money, kept you safe with bodyguards and the best schools and everything your mother and I dreamed of, that would be enough. But I forgot the most important thing. I forgot you needed me, not just my money, not just security, but me, and I've been so lost without your mom that I didn't see I was losing you, too." The bodyguards shifted, clearly uncomfortable with their employer's emotional breakdown, but they maintained their positions, and Emma felt tears streaming down her own face because she understood both sides of this pain, the child desperate for connection, and the adult so buried in grief and responsibility that they couldn't see what was right in front of them. Lily threw her arms around her father's neck, and Marcus held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, his shoulders shaking with sobs he'd probably been holding back for months, maybe years, and the entire diner watched in respectful silence as this family began to heal in the middle of the morning rush. Amid the smell of coffee and bacon and pancakes that had somehow become a bridge between a lonely girl and the father who loved her but had forgotten how to show it. When Marcus finally composed himself enough to stand, he kept Lily close, one hand protectively on her shoulder, and he turned to Emma with red-rimmed eyes. "I don't even know your name. You've been caring for my daughter, giving her what I should have been giving her, and I don't even know your name." Emma offered a small smile. "I'm Emma, and honestly, sir, Lily's been helping me just as much. She reminded me why kindness matters, why showing up for people matters." Marcus shook his head slowly. "Please, call me Marcus, and I need to do better. I need to be better, and I don't know how to thank you for keeping her safe, for giving her what I couldn't." Emma glanced down at Lily, whose small hand had reached out to hold hers, connecting her to both her father and her unexpected friend. "Just be there for her. That's all she needs. Your time, your attention, your presence. The rest is just details." Marcus nodded, absorbing the simple truth in those words. And then he did something unexpected. The bodyguards, the security. "It's because her mother died in a car accident 2 years ago, and I became obsessed with keeping Lily safe from every possible danger. But I didn't realize the real danger was her growing up feeling alone and invisible. I need to change that. Starting now." He looked at his daughter. "Lily, what if we had breakfast together every morning before school? Would you like that?" Lily's eyes widened with hope and disbelief. "Really, Daddy? Every morning? You won't be too busy?" Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. "Never too busy for you, sweetheart. Sure, the most important thing in my life. And I'm sorry it took me this long to show you that." Then he turned back to Emma. "Would it be okay if we came here sometimes? I think this place means something to Lily, and I'd like to understand this part of her life." Emma's smile was genuine and warm. "You're always welcome here." Over the following weeks, everything shifted. Marcus began bringing Lily to the diner himself, 2 or 3 mornings a week. Sitting in that same corner booth, and Emma watched as the wall between them slowly crumbled. As Lily's quiet voice grew stronger and more animated when talking to her father, as Marcus learned to put his phone away and really listen, as they laughed together over heart-shaped pancakes and shared orange juice, and the transformation was beautiful to witness. Marcus also made changes beyond the diner. He reduced his work hours, started having family dinners with Lily every night, took her to the park on weekends, attended her school events, and even arranged for grief counseling for both of them to properly process the loss of Lily's mother. And Lily bloomed under the attention, her sad eyes slowly filling with light again, her rare smiles becoming more frequent, her whole demeanor shifting from a child merely surviving to one actually living. One morning, about 2 months after that first confrontation, Marcus arrived at the diner alone, and Emma felt a flutter of worry until he explained, "Lily's on a field trip today. But I wanted to talk to you. You've been thinking a lot about what you said, about showing up for people, about kindness. And I realized I've been so focused on my own pain that I stopped seeing other people's struggles." He pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. "This isn't payment for what you did. You can't put a price on giving someone back their daughter, but I did some research, and I know you're working double shifts, barely making ends meet, and you mentioned once wanting to go back to school to become a teacher." Emma opened the envelope with shaking hands and found a check that made her gasp, along with a letter of recommendation and information about a scholarship program Marcus's company sponsored. "I can't force you to accept it, but I want you to have the same chance you gave Lily, the chance to be seen, to be valued, to build the life you dream of." Emma's tears flowed freely. "Marcus, this is too much. I can't." He shook his head firmly. "You taught me that the greatest gift we can give is our presence, our attention, our care. You gave that to a stranger's child when her own father was too blind to see what she needed. And you did it, expecting nothing in return. Please, let me do this. Let me pay forward even a fraction of what you gave us." Emma accepted. Not just the financial help, but the deeper gift of being seen, of mattering, of her own struggles being acknowledged. And she hugged this man who had transformed from an intimidating figure with bodyguards into a grateful father and unexpected friend. The months that followed brought continued healing for everyone. Lily thrived with her father's active presence in her life. Marcus learned to balance work and family, finding joy in the simple moments he'd been missing. And Emma enrolled in community college, while still working at the diner part-time. Her own dreams finally within reach, because someone had invested in her, the way she'd invested in a lonely little girl. The corner booth at Rosie's Diner became a symbol of connection. A reminder that sometimes the most profound changes come from simple acts of kindness. That showing up for someone, really showing up, with presence and attention and care, can heal wounds that money and security and material things never could. On Lily's 9th birthday, Marcus brought her to the diner for a special celebration, and Martha made a stack of pancakes with a candle on top, and all the regulars sang while Lily beamed with happiness. And when she blew out the candle, she whispered to Emma, "I wished that you'll always be my friend." And Emma whispered back, "That's a wish that's already come true." As the celebration wound down and Lily colored a new picture, this time of 3 people holding hands, labeled Daddy, me, and Emma, Marcus caught Emma's eye and mouthed, "Thank you one more time." And Emma simply smiled, knowing that the real thanks was seeing this family whole again. Seeing Lily's light restored, seeing Marcus present and engaged, and finally healing from his grief by connecting with his daughter instead of hiding from the pain. The story of the waitress and the quiet girl became something of a legend in the neighborhood, a reminder that wealth and security mean nothing without human connection, that children need presence more than presence, that grief can isolate us from the very people who could help us heal, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply show up for a lonely child, for a struggling parent, for ourselves, and choose connection over comfort, vulnerability over protection, love over fear. Emma learned that her own painful past, her own experience of feeling invisible and alone, wasn't just a scar to carry, but a gift that gave her the empathy to recognize pain in others and the courage to reach out. And Marcus learned that being a good father wasn't about providing perfect security or erasing all danger, but about being emotionally present, about creating a relationship where his daughter felt safe enough to share her heart, her fears, her dreams, and her pain. Lily learned that it was okay to ask for what she needed, to speak up when she felt alone, to trust that people could change and grow and show up differently. And she learned that love sometimes comes from unexpected places, not just from family by blood, but from family we choose, from connections we build, from people who see us and decide we matter. Years later, when Emma graduated with her teaching degree, Lily and Marcus were in the front row cheering. And when Emma opened her own after-school program for at-risk kids, Marcus's foundation provided funding. And Lily, now a teenager, volunteered every week, passing on the kindness that had once saved her, and the 3 of them remained connected, bound not by obligation, but by genuine love and respect, and the shared understanding that they had all saved each other in different ways. The diner still stood on the same corner, the booth still waited for weekend breakfasts when their schedules aligned, and sometimes Emma would sit there alone during a quiet moment and remember that rainy Tuesday morning when a small girl in a wet dress had asked for pancakes and unknowingly asked for so much more, for connection, for visibility, for someone to command. Emma had said yes, not knowing that simple yes would transform multiple lives, would create a family from strangers, would prove that the most powerful force in the world isn't money or security or protection, but the simple, profound act of showing up for another human being and saying, through presence and attention and care, "You matter, you are seen, you are not alone."